Well, good morning, everyone. It's morning somewhere, ain't it? 5 o'clock somewhere. Good afternoon, good evening. Glad you're here this evening. We're in Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 through 33 this evening. Don't look at me like I'm crazy there, Fred. Matthew 14, verse 22 through 33. Going to talk a little bit about the storms of life. Got a lot of friends going through a lot of problems out in the world. A lot of Christian brothers and sisters going through some problems in the world and just problems in general. And I think this is going to be a good lesson for us to turn back to. Matthew chapter 14, verse 22, and it reads as this: Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now when evening had come, he was alone there. But in verse 24, the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the fourth watch, or after 3 a.m. of the night, Jesus went to them walking on the sea. And the disciples saw him walking on the sea. They were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out for fear. But immediately in verse 27, Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if or whether it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And Peter had come down out of the boat. He walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when, in verse 30, but when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those, in verse 33, who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." As we journey through life, we're like a ship that's tossed in the sea. A lot of things affect us during the week. A lot of things affect us in life, even when we grow older. And some days the sea is very calm and it's at rest. It's very smooth. Things are going great. Things are going fine. But on these days, we feel as nothing can touch us. We're good to go. We don't need anybody. Things are going perfect. But there's days where the winds blow and the storms come and the rains howl down, the seas start getting boisterous, the seas start raging, and we can see that we can't control that situation. God can control it, but we can't see the end of that situation sometimes. This makes us fearful for the ride, fearful through the storm that we're going through in life. It makes us fearful of the unknown. But sometimes we feel battered in the storms in verse 24. The ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. Life is not always pleasant, even in a service to the Lord. Turn the news on. Look at the news and what's happening in other countries about people killing Christians because you wear the name of Christ. Being a servant of the Lord, sometimes it's not always happy, but we must serve the Lord. As children of God, we must face the storms, and God will help us through the storms. 1 Corinthians 10:13. 1 Corinthians 10:13. We've read this plenty of times. But again, to tie in with our lesson, maybe those who might be forwarded this message through YouTube to help them in their life. We understand that no temptation in verse 13 of 1 Corinthians 10 has overtaken you except such as common to man. But God is faithful. God is faithful. Did you hear that? Who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able, but with the temptation will make a way of escape. God will lead you out and provide you an exit, he's saying here, that you may be able to bear it or endure it. God has a way for us. We might not know what tomorrow holds, but we know who holds tomorrow in his hand. We need to remember that. Abraham had to dwell with strangers in Hebrews chapter 11, if you want to turn there. He had to dwell with strangers in a strange land, and he's living in these tabernacles. Hebrews chapter 11. Moses had to suffer the afflictions with the people of God. He'd rather do that than enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 24 and 25. By faith, Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Can you imagine how much power you would have back then? Can you imagine all that power? And yet refused. Check this out. Verse 25. Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing or temporary pleasures of sin. Sin is temporary. Even the Bible tells us. How about dropping down to verse 32 of Hebrews chapter 11? And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, of Barak, and Samson, and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became violent in battle, turned to fight the armies of the aliens. Women, in verse 35, received their deeds raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance that they may obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trial of mockings and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonments. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains and in dens and in caves of the earth. And all these, in verse 39, having obtained a good testimony through faith, did not receive the promise. God having provided something better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from us. Life's not always pleasant, even when we're serving the Lord. But sometimes we feel darkness has won, verse 25 of Matthew, which we were reading. And at night he set forth in the fourth watch of the night, and darkness of the hour had come, and it was after midnight and early dawn, as we were talking about there. And many children of God face their own storms in life. All right? They might stay up all night trying to get catnapped during the day just to fight through some storms that happen at night in their life. Maybe sickness. Some are ill. Maybe a job. Maybe a marriage problem or things of that nature. Maybe it's something we have said or done in our past that's cost us a lot. But we know that God will provide even in the darkest hours of night. David said, "Oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then I would fly away and be at rest." Psalm 55:6. Jeremiah said, "Oh, that I in the wilderness, a lodging place of wayfaring men, that I might leave my people." Jeremiah 2:9. Many feel that our best efforts amount to nothing. Verse 29 and 30. We give it all we got. Who cares, you know? They just don't amount to anything. Well, he said in verse 29 and 30, "Come, and when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, 'Lord, save me.'" Peter started out with the faith. He started out with the faith in Christ. Christ told him to come, and Peter was ready for the task. Well, he was willing, but it wasn't enough. And so it is with God's people today. No matter how hard we try sometimes to walk with God, it seems like the elements of the world, maybe our friends and all that, and just what's going on in life, it shakes our faith so much that we just want to give up and say, "I'm done." Well, those times, are we taking our eyes off God, off Christ? That's when we need to put our eyes back on Christ. You know, when the sea is nice and smooth and everything's going good and you know, it's just easy going. We're just going with the motions. Everything's good to go. Everything's hunky-dory. But when times get tough, we need our God more and more. Don't take our eyes off the prize. You know, Paul said the old law was a hindrance and that we are thankful that we are under Christ, Romans chapter 7, and apart from sin. But Peter began to think that the end was near in verse 30, and so we feel as though God has given up on us sometimes, and we hide in our troubles and trying to escape, and yet God has not given up on us. How about Mark chapter 4, verse 37? Mark 4, 37 through 39. And it reads as this: And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat so that it was already filling. But he was asleep in the stern, or in the stern asleep on a pillow, and they awoke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Don't you see, God's not going to let nothing happen to you? Those guys were freaking out in the boat. Water's coming in the boat. Don't you care about us? And Jesus said, Look, I got this, man. Peace, be still. Here we go. Calm sea. Look at the faith and also lack of faith. So, where is our faith tonight? Where's our faith in God in the storms that we're going through? Pretty tough sometimes, you know. And we just need to remember that God is for us. If God's for us, who can be against us? But thank God that Jesus is here to save us from our despair. And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, verse 31. So how many times have you been sinking in despair, ready to give up, only to see God reaching for you to bring you back out of that situation? How many times can we count in life in the situations that we're drowning, we're up to here, can't take it anymore, and next thing you know, the next day, things just clear up. The sea is calm again. Peter was able to tell us some 27 years later in 1 Peter 5:7, cast all your cares upon him because he cares for you. Life is short. The things that are happening in life are temporary. We just have to make it. David was able to say, Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And so, Jesus is a comfort to us. And keep in mind the words of God to Joshua in Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them, for the Lord thy God, he it is that doth go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. And also in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 6, brethren, we can say boldly, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear what man can do to me. Don't fear. And Jesus said in Matthew chapter 28:20, Lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the world. So you see, when we have the storms in life, you see how those storms can be calmed. You see how Jesus can bring us out of those storms. We can't forget that. The great physician, all right, the power of God to even say, Peace be still, and the seas are calm. Yeah, today might be a problem. You know, you might have problems in life today, and the world just getting to you, and you just want to quit. Thinking God's not here, he's not helping us out. But God said he'll provide a way of escape. Don't give up. O ye of little faith. Don't let God say that to you. It's tough sometimes. But again, cast all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. And strengthen someone else that you know might be going through some hard times in their life. Some hard times that they just can't make it seem like. Pray for them and tell them you're praying for them. You know, our God is a great God, and He wants us to be with Him one day, and He doesn't want us to give up. If He wanted us to give up, He wouldn't send His Son. He sent His Son for us to have everlasting life. And to gain that life is to be immersed into Christ and have all your sins washed away. You know, and to live that life righteously with God, to live it in faith, to live it till the days of all the days of your life. That's what the Bible teaches. And so we need to be immersed into Christ if we haven't. There might be some watching on the internet who have not been immersed into Christ, who might not know Christ. Let us know. We'll talk with you about it. But that's what the Bible reads. And you go on our webpage and read all about salvation, how to be saved, and also prayer for those that are in the congregation tonight. So if there's a need this evening, if there's a need for prayers or of salvation, then please come and stand as we sing.